And now we have our last, but definitely not our least speaker, John Sims. And John Sims, he serves as the president for global sales and sits on the executive team for BlackBerry. His job is to set up and define and execute all the strategies for the enterprise industry.
Before working for BlackBerry, John actually worked for SAP in the mobile services department. John, I could not think of a better person to close up Biz Talks and be one of our last our speakers, because he has such great expertise in everything from marketing to sales to tech to entrepreneurship. He really is going to be a great way to sum up Biz Talks. So everyone give it up to John Sims.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Thanks. Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here. One of the reasons I have so much experience is because I'm the oldest guy probably in this whole group. So, but one of the things you should kind of take away from everything you've heard so far is there is no one answer. There's lots of different permutations that will work for you in your work life and with the choices that you make. So, you know, it's kind of easy to get yourself all tight and locked up in, gosh, I've got to make this decision about what I'm going to major in, what I'm going to do, what job I'm going to take, and so on. But there is no one answer. You just have to be able to be prepared at the right time. It's about preparation, and it's about preparation meeting opportunity. That's when you get lucky in your career. So there's lots of different answers in how you get there. I had my own, and I'll talk a little about that, but there is no one formula. It's about being ready when the opportunities come up. I used to work for SAP, so I'm pretty comfortable talking with slides that have an SAP logo on them. One of the things I wanted to add on the big data thing, which I think is really interesting, is the question. I talked to some researchers recently in Canada, and they're looking at this idea that big data, your big data, my big data, would be a currency that we could trade. Because today, when you click on the apps that you use, whether they're on your phones or your computers or whatever, you're basically giving away your big data to the big guy in the cloud. And these researchers are looking at the idea that you could actually create a market for that big data, and that people could trade that as a currency from an individual to companies and companies to companies and so on. Okay, so I'm not a Chico alum. Now, I should say my son is. He graduated last year, gainfully employed, I might add. And my wife is, and her 3 sisters are, and 2 of their spouses are. So when I go to parties, I'm definitely the odd man out in the group. So I can tell you all kinds of things about Chico that you might not expect someone who's not an alum to know, but I have a lot of experience in that. I graduated from a place I grew up in Scotland, graduated from the University of Glasgow. The University of Glasgow was first built in 1451. It's a little like Hogwarts or something like that, you know. So it's been around for a while. It's a little, and seriously, it looks like Hogwarts inside in some of the lecture theaters. And so I went to the University of Glasgow, as did Adam Smith, James Watt, the steam engineer, and Joseph Lister. So lots of great people went through the university before me, and not that I heard they were all dead by the time I got there, so I didn't hear them speak. But lots of great people followed before, and you get the benefit of that here as well. So I studied accounting and law, did a double major in accounting and law, and then the choices as I was leaving school behind the 3 doors where I could be a lawyer. I could have gone, and they called it chartered accountant, CA, but CPA, or I could have gone into the corporate finance world. I chose for me, just based on what I knew and the people I knew that were in those other jobs, that 2 of them weren't the right place for me. But it was a personal choice. I didn't feel compelled to go one way. It was just, they didn't fit. The people I met in those jobs I didn't relate to them, didn't think that really reflected who I wanted to be. So I chose the corporate finance route. And then when I was choosing my next step, it's now, okay, I've chosen corporate finance, now where am I gonna go? I interviewed with 5 companies back in those days. It's a few years ago. And These are three of the companies I interviewed with. Two of them don't exist anymore. And they all smacked to me when I talked to them of old industry. So things are very different today. So you would have a different set of criteria that you would use to define an old industry. But these companies, so the middle one is a paper products company. The top one is a car company. You've never heard of it, right? But it was one of the top car companies in Britain at the time. What's that? And the Triumph, yeah, and the Mini as well. It's gone through lots of changes since. And then Rolls-Royce, but it was Rolls-Royce engines. So it was the engines that go on planes and that kind of thing. That was kind of interesting, but still felt like old industry. So what I decided to do at the time, and you don't recognize the company because they don't exist anymore, they were merged into another company, was I joined a company called Burroughs. So what did that mean to me? This is in the 70s, and what it meant to me was new. This is new. I can ride the wave of technology with this company. And Burroughs was one of the two key mainframe and medium systems computing companies in the world at that point in time. And so I got there was another reason. When I went to interview with all three of these companies on the left here, everybody I met with that was in a management position was old, kind of like I am now, but they were old. And it was kind of like, I wanted to know how I could get their job. And it was pretty clear the way you got their job was be there long enough. And that didn't really fit with what I was looking for. I was looking to move based on my own merits and my own achievements. And so Burroughs, the guy I interviewed, he showed up for the interview. He had long hair down to here. He had a goatee beard. I mean, he just looked like he had been working all night, but he looked like he was having a lot of fun. And I thought, well, I could have his job in 3 years. And so I joined Burroughs for that reason. They were also not a Scottish company or a British company. They were a US company, and that also was appealing to me. The other thing I would add is, at the time, the University of Glasgow is in Glasgow, and Burroughs, when I joined them, they're based in the east of Scotland. The people, my friends and family and everything, thought I was crazy that I would move all the way to the east of Scotland. It's 38 miles. Right? 38 miles. They thought I was crazy. So then when I was with Burroughs for a few years and I decided to transfer to California, so I moved from the east of Scotland to Newport Beach in California, they thought I was totally insane. So you know, there was no doubt that I was crazy. And I'll talk in a minute about, I changed a lot of different companies, but I wanted to, with all the companies that I've worked for over the years, as you get into that journey, as you start working, there are some things to think about. So first of all, I started this with that accounting and law basis, and it is a phenomenal foundation for a lot of things. You will see it come up and be useful all the time in your career, no matter what paths you might choose. But it's important to diversify. So actually, after I moved to the States, I was still in finance at that time. I was the controller, and I had gotten to be the youngest controller in a 55,000 person organization. So it was a big deal. But I wasn't satisfied with that. I wanted to get into the operational side of the business and learn other aspects. And diversifying into that, I thought, was really important. The people that worked for me at the time made me up a t-shirt at my going away party that said, "Beans were meant to be picked, not counted." And that was their sending me off from my finance background into the wild blue yonder. But it's important as you get into your career to think about diversifying, seeing more, managing people, getting into marketing, getting into sales, touching things. Be open to that opportunity to be able to diversify and get yourself that sort of cross-functional experience. It will make you a much better person in the middle part and in the later parts of your career. And then challenge. So one of the mentors I had way back in my career said, you should find the biggest problem that's going on in your department or is going on in the company and go figure out how to get associated with it. Because if you can help solve it, you're going to learn a hell of a lot in dealing with it, and it's going to move your career forward. And it was great advice. I did that numerous times. you got to be smart enough not to take on completely insane challenges, but as long as you look and you say, I can solve this, I can make a contribution to this, then it's a great way to learn, and it's a great way to be able to advance your career as you go forward. And then, be bold, take risks, take chances, be willing to get knocked down and get back up again. I was going to say Ted Williams, but then I thought most of you might not know who Ted Williams was. But so Ted Williams, the best batter, batted 400, right? And this is a little like sales too. You have to be prepared to get back up and go right back into battle again. And so as you go through your career, you will have things that will, you'll hit a dead end, but you got to figure out how to solve the problem, how to solve the puzzle, using all of your skills, your analytical skills, your technical skills, and your soft skills to be able to deal with that. And then look to mentors. Find people that you respect, that you can see are good at what they do, and then use their guidance. This guy is actually one of the people that greatly influenced my career. His name is Jimmy Tribic. He was the founder of Tandem Computers, which was one of the early companies that defined Silicon Valley's culture. And just all the things that Google takes credit for. Oh, we have on-site daycare, we have on-site laundries. Nuh-uh. We were doing that in the 1980s. Google didn't even start until 1998. This man was the one who defined a lot of that kind of culture. He was the Entrepreneur of the Year for both the Stanford and Harvard Business Schools in the same year. Never been done before. But he was somebody I could learn from. So find these people as you go along. They may not be as big as him. They may be the department manager, the person in the other office who has skills you don't have. But find them and use them in your career as you go forward. You do all of that, and you'll find opportunity. So in my case, I got to, at SAP, I was the president of one of their divisions, and I got to do that from an accounting major. So if you're sitting here as an accounting major, and I don't really mind if you did marketing, or you had an emphasis in entrepreneurship, it doesn't really matter. The beginning is not the end. You define the end, and you make the journey yours as you go along. You put your effort into it, you prepare yourself, you look for those opportunities, and you'll have a great time. So that's my advice. Thanks very much.